the roll.
Okay. The others are logging in right now.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
If we go faster, we can get there faster.
That's what I'm thinking, Byron.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and call the roll. Councilman Fry.
Here.
Councilwoman Griffin. I have not seen her log in. Councilwoman Burrow.
Present.
Councilwoman Robinette.
Here.
Mayor Knowles.
Here.
Councilwoman Lipka.
Here.
And Councilwoman Jones.
Here.
Okay.
All right, quorum is present. All right, we will start our meeting off this afternoon, this evening, with our public comment portion of the meeting. Those of you who wish to have had your comments recorded in our public comments should have already submitted them and had them received by our city clerk, Ms. Octavia Pittman. And so, Ms. Pittman, I will ask you to read those comments that have been submitted before this meeting.
I did not receive any comments.
All right, easy enough. We will close the public comment portion of the meeting then and move on to the manager's report. And with that, I'll ask our interim city manager, Mr. Jeffrey Bloom, to give us his report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to just remind everybody that today was the first day that City Hall was open. You get a chance, stop on by. We've got all the stickers on the floor and all the shields up. We will also begin working on opening the community center and event center based upon the information we've been given by St. Louis County that's been posted on their site. Not everything is quite clear yet, but we'll begin working on that. I'd make the general observation that every single one of our buildings has a different set of criteria. So what works at City Hall isn't going to work at the event center and isn't going to work at the community center, and et cetera. And Dave is responsible for that, and in about a week we should be ready to go. With respect to PD, not a lot of public access there unless someone needs to get inside, at which point in time the standard protocols they'll be subject to. I also want to remind everybody that with respect to the municipal court, the requirements related to reopening the municipal court will be set by Missouri Supreme Court and the St. Louis County Circuit Court. And as soon as they tell us what those requirements are, we'll begin working on them. We've already started because some of it is pretty obvious. The rest is going to be based upon what they instruct us to do. And then finally, just as kind of a refresher to remind everybody, we really don't have public access at the garage as a rule, but what we do have is vendor access. And so we will begin subjecting vendors to the same kind of scrutiny that we subject our employees to in terms of answering the questionnaire and taking the temperature to ensure that they're not exhibiting any signs of infection. That's it in terms of COVID-19 preparation. So I'd say that we're taking everybody's health and well-being very seriously, not just our employees, but our guests as well.
Excellent. Any questions for our interim city manager on any issue, of course, especially the issues of reopening City Hall or any of the COVID-19 preparations? Any questions? Jeff, I don't see Chief Hampton on here currently, but is there any update as far as availability of PPE or any other issues related to the pandemic? I haven't seen in a little while where we're at as far as infection or active infections in Ferguson specifically. Just kind of curious if that's tapering off. Do we still see increasing numbers here locally? Anything on that?
Unfortunately, I apologize. No, I don't have Dan. And go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I can speak to it. And so
Okay, good.
with regard to, I'm sorry. Well, with regard to the PPE, we're doing pretty good on the PPE for right now. St. Louis County EOC still has adequate supply of PPE. So both the police department and the fire department, we've been able to acquire the needed PPE that we've needed. So right now we're looking good on that. As far as the cases that we're seeing here in Ferguson, it's still pretty steady from the information that we're getting as far as, how many, new addresses may get added or have confirmed cases. And so I would say really at best of where we're at right now, things have been consistent. We haven't seen any big increase. We haven't seen any big decrease in what's, being reported to us as far as the positive test. And so when I look at that as we're doing better as a city, because we just started having testing in the city a couple weeks ago. And so before that, we didn't have just the overabundance of testing that was accessible, to our residents. And so knowing that, additional testing sites have been added, not only to the city, but some of our surrounding areas and our immediate areas, and people have more access to it, we haven't seen a significant jump or increase for Ferguson cases. And so to me, that tells me that we're doing pretty good, all things considered, with the numbers that we're seeing that still pop up here in the city.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate that. Is there any other questions for Chief or for the interim city manager? All right. Seeing none, let's move on our agenda to our public hearing. This evening we have our annual public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant. Those again who wish to have spoken regarding the public hearing should have submitted their questions prior to this meeting to our city clerk to have them read it. Or if there is anybody currently logged in who would like to speak, they can, using the chat box feature, raise their hand. There's a little feature on the chat box for that. So with that, I'll open up, well, actually, first I'll ask our Public Works Director, Matt Runride, to give us the breakdown on what we're going to be proposing to spend the CDBG monies for 2021 on, and then we'll open up the actual hearing. Mr.
Thank you,
Runride?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. So before you have your standard application. This application, and at least the majority of it hasn't changed the last few years. The one thing that has changed from a few years ago is that our ability to split these funds between different objectives. And so we had been, in years past, more than 2 years ago, we had been spending some of the money on code enforcement. Since a change in HUD regulations, or a change in the interpretation of HUD regulations, as a representative from CDBG explained in February when he came and spoke to us all, that makes it really hard for municipalities to use these funds for code enforcement. So since that time, and this will be the third funding year, we have suggested that we use the money for streets. And so you'll see that the whole of the 155 300 is being spent, or staff's being recommended that be spent on streets. So that's the way the application has been written for you this evening. That's really the end of my staff remarks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Unrein. Is there any questions from the council for Mr. Unrein regarding the allocation of the CDBG funds for 2021? Seeing no questions, I'll open up the public hearing for the CDBG allotments for 2021. Ms. Pittman, has there been anyone who has signed in to speak previous to this regarding this issue?
You're muted, Octavia.
I'm really good at reading her lips, and she says no.
And I also don't see anyone, I'm checking the chat now, and I don't see anyone has noted their interest in speaking.
Yeah. And if there's anyone who is in attendance who wishes to record their attendance but doesn't wish to speak, you can also on the group chat, which is at the very bottom of your screen. If you don't see it up there, you can take your cursor toward the bottom of the screen. You'll see a little menu bar come up, and there's a chat feature. If you would like to speak, you can notify us right now using that feature. If you just want to record your attendance, you can also do that as well. Just let us know. So I'll give you a quick moment. If there's anyone who would like to speak regarding the CDBG funds allocation for 2021, chat now or forever hold your peace, I guess. Okay. Unless there's just some very, very slow typists out there, I don't think we have anybody who wants to speak. So I will close the public portion, the public hearing for the CDBG funds for 2021, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes. We have a number of minutes over the last month. As you can see, we've been quite busy. We have the council budget meeting of May 7th, 2020, the council special meeting of minutes of May 12th, 2020, the council regular meeting minutes of May 12th, 2020, the council budget meeting minutes of May 14th, 2020, and the council special meeting minutes of May 19th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve those as submitted?
So moved.
So the motion by Mr. Fry, is there a second?
Second.
I hear a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as read, please say aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain. I have not read all the minutes.
All right, I hear the majority ayes, those opposed. And one abstention, Ms. Burrow, I think we'll record that. The motion does pass. Next, we have resolutions 2020-23. Without objection, we'll introduce this as council members present. Seeing no objection, Mr. Carey, will you read the title of the bill for us, please?
Yes, sir. Resolution number 2020-23. A resolution authorizing an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the city of Normandy for vehicle maintenance and repair services.
All right, Mr. Unrein.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. As I previewed just very briefly for you during last week's budget hearing, Normandy does also want to use our vehicle and like lawnmower, tractor repair service that we do. In fact, we've in an emergency setting, we've already fixed their trash truck for them. They had a trash truck that had a hydraulic leak, very dangerous, as many of you know, hydraulic fluid under very high extreme pressure. And so we were able to fix that for them so they could keep collecting their citizens' trash service. But I did reach out to them today and convey the council's wishes that we also collect a resolution or some formal article of approval allowing them to enter into the agreement. But what you have before you tonight will be that same official approval on our behalf.
All right.
It's a standard rate. They pay us for the hourly real-time cost for our mechanics' labor, and then whatever parts they use.
All right, any questions?
Is that the
Melissa?
$75 an hour?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Matt,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Ella. After we repair their vehicles, do we give them any kind of guarantee that this won't reoccur because we repaired it, or we just repaired and said fix? You're on your own.
Well, you know, that's actually a very good question. I guess the short answer is no. There's no guarantee beyond what maybe the parts would have. I don't know about Normandy's fleet, but using, for example, the fleet that Calverton Park or Delwood has, many of their vehicles and much of their equipment is very, very aged. I mean, it's really old. And so
Okay.
to offer a guarantee would be really unwise on our behalf. So no, ma'am. We fix it the one time and it lasts for as long as it lasts. I mean, sometimes they bring it in, 86 Ford pickups for us to fix. I mean, it's just crazy. Antiques.
Yeah, an 86 does qualify for historic plates under Missouri law, just FYI. It's a good question, but yeah, it does concern me that who's been taking care of it for the 20 years before us, right? So,
yeah,
and what they did or didn't do right.
And who's driving right now?
Right. Good point, Mr. Fry. Is there any other questions for Mr. Unrein? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2020-23.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lipka, second by Mr. Fry. Ms. Pittman, please call the roll.
Councilman Fry,
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow,
Aye.
Councilwoman Robinette,
Aye.
Mayor Knowles,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lip,
Aye.
Councilwoman Jones.
Aye.
All right, Resolution 2020-23 passes. We have no bills requiring first reading this evening. We have Bill 7182 requiring a second reading. I'll entertain a motion to have it read a second time and placed upon its passage.
Mr.
So
Mayor?
moved.
Mr.
I
Mayor?
heard a motion. I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Bloom.
Yes, just wanted to say that I reached out to our attorney, Teresa Young, at the beginning of last week, and asked her if she's had any success in contacting counsel for the St. Louis Realtors Association, and she has not. Pardon me. She has had success in contacting their attorney. Their attorney has not had success in contacting his client. And so we still don't have a resolution of the open item that we brought up 6 or 8 weeks ago now. So I told her that, that we have one more session in this legislative year in which to have a second reading of this bill. Otherwise, it goes back to square one. And she said she understood and would convey that to her client or to her counterpart.
All right.
So I would
Well,
recommend.
I do apologize. I did not read the fine print on my agenda, so I see that we do have a motion pending to postpone this.
I withdraw my motion. I misunderstood.
Well, and I didn't see that. So thank you, Ms. Lipka, for withdrawing your motion. I would entertain a motion to postpone this reading until the next meeting, the second reading, until the next meeting. Is there a motion?
So
Second.
moved.
I saw
right,
the
I heard
doctor move, so I said second.
Yeah.
I heard there was yes. Mr. Fry, thank you for the motion. Ms. Burrow, thank you for the second. All those in favor of postponing Bill 7182, please say aye.
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 All right, now those opposed? All right, motion carries. We have now before us Bill 7185. I'll entertain a motion to have it read a second time and placed upon its passage.
So moved.
Been a motion by Mr. Fry. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a second. Paulo, will you read the title of the bill for us, please?
Yes, sir. Bill number 7185, an ordinance of the city of Ferguson, Missouri, granting a special use permit to Reggie Jackson for the purpose of operating a full-service car wash at 1016 South Corson Road, subject to the conditions, restrictions, and requirements set forth herein.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carey.
You're welcome.
This is the redo of the the special use permit, which was previously denied by the council. I know that that the petitioner had reached out and tried to speak to council members to try to change their mind. I mean, I'll be quite frank. My position has not changed in the sense, number one, that this, regardless of the situation, this bill did not only did not get an affirmative vote of a quorum of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but again, the issues that existed before in my mind still stand, which was that this facility was, special use permit was granted for a facility. It was moved without permission. Whether or not, there's any, regardless of the reason, it was moved without permission to a facility, frankly, that this city has for years had designs on redeveloping to a use which would coincide with the master plan for the Ferguson downtown special business district. To take the largest, probably most valuable open piece of land in the downtown business district and give a special use to a car wash, I frankly think is not only a terrible use of the special use process, but it highly underutilizes the facilities and the land, which, frankly, this city now more than ever desperately needs to redevelop. And so, I personally, still adamantly opposed to this. I think that the implications of not moving forward with a redevelopment on this project will have long-term and serious implications for the city. But I'll leave it to the council for further discussion.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
So I did speak with RJ. He did call and spoke with me, and and I still stand on the fact that I do not appreciate the process of moving into the location before the special use permit was approved. But after conversation, and it became very clear to me that this was not an intention of doing something behind our backs. He was led to believe that this was something he was allowed to do, and he was led to believe that there was going to be no problems with this. I still held on to that concern because whether those beliefs, right, wrong, or indifferent, we still set a precedent. That being said, I just feel like the fact that he took the step to close his business down until we made a decision shows to me that he is trying very hard to do the right thing in regards to this. And I would put it upon our city development director to make sure that in the future, this will land on him, because in the future, this has to be a clear understanding of what the special use permits are for, when people can use them, when they can move, and so forth. So in the future, I would say that this needs to be, this mistake can't happen again. And then I was also concerned about the redevelopment aspect that the mayor mentioned, and I've been assured that RJ is aware of that, and that he is ready. He will have to move at the time of that. So I'd like Elliot to speak on that, and that's where I'm at.
Which piece are you? Which piece do you want me to? Okay. Well, in regards, we'll take it in order. In regards to the not letting it happen again, you're absolutely correct. And, we have a process for dealing with projects as a city, internal staff reviews. So we can catch these things, hopefully, presumably before they get this far, and make sure that this doesn't come back before you in a different applicant. And then as far as the development, I've talked with RJ from day one, and both he and the property owner on the call and are aware of the fact that there's 4.5 acres sitting there that we would like to develop. Is it going to happen in the next 12 months? I'd like to say it would, but I just don't see it. Just the market being what it is. And that's not a knock on Ferguson as much as it is a knock on the market as a whole. So since he's aware and the owner is aware that someday we're going to come knocking on their door and say, hey, we're going to redevelop this whole site. And since they've already acknowledged, we'll go. What I'm looking at is we have an applicant who we know, he was he was next door. So it's not like this is a new business, and versus having nothing. And, I appreciate the mayor's point, but what is on the horizon for this site if this goes away?
Well, Mr. Leibson, I can tell you over the last 15 years, all those wonderful things that we talk about that we have in Ferguson we only have because we said no to things that that other people wanted to put in, but we wanted something different, period. Every business in Ferguson, whether it's Cork or Brewhouse or Vincenzo's or Drake's Place or you name it, somebody else wanted to put something there that did not fit with what we had designed for the business district, period. And oftentimes we sat with buildings empty for months and years to ensure that we got to fit in with the development plans that our businesses and our citizens have put together, sometimes with the help of professionals, to ensure that the development along that corridor meets with the development goals of the city. And so yes, there is this business, nothing against this business. There was, I think, previously allowing it to be next door in a different building that has different uses, different features, different potential, but to move it over into, as you just mentioned, a 4+ acre lot. And I'll be very frank with you, and quite frank with you, because I've seen it play out for the last 2 decades. A landowner who's getting rent off of some business, frankly, a business necessarily that, again, is not what we have designed for that area, is not inclined to do something more with it, period. That is the story of every redevelopment in America, probably, certainly every redevelopment along South Florissant Road corridor. Now, if you think that magic's going to happen and next year everybody's going to say, well, I'll walk away from it when we have somebody interested. We've had people interested over the past several years. When there was a business operating there was not the impetus for the property owner to do something more than was there. Even though that business that was operating, a used car lot, was not what fit in the downtown designs and the business district's master plan.
Might I speak?
So, I think that's an issue that, we need to, consider as a city council. Mr. Leibson?
The fair points all. I have no other things to add to that.
Hello, might I speak?
I'm not sure who's trying to speak, but I mean, this isn't a public comment portion of the meeting. This is only an opportunity from the council to speak. Are there other members of the council who wish to speak this evening on this issue?
I just have one more.
Go ahead.
I just have one more. If Elliot comes about, I hear your point. And if Elliot comes about and let's say next year some developer comes in and they want to do this, Elliot, we're letting him move over there now. Okay, great. That's wonderful. But at the same time, if somebody comes up in 8 months and wants to develop that, then he's going to have to move again. I mean, has he discussed that with you? Where is he going to go? Is it, is there going to be legalities that are going to affect us? At this point, is he going to take us to court and say, hey, I did this, this, and this in good faith and kept my doors shut, and then I reopen them, and then a short time later you tell me I got to leave? I mean, is there legalities there?
I'm not going to get into the legal piece. I'm not an attorney, but as far as what happens in 8 months, I mean, you could presumably ask for some sort of letter in writing that says, if this happens, then I agree I'm going to go and not cause trouble. And, but as far as the legality of that and whether they could come after us, I defer to counsel on that.
You don't have that? I mean, you're telling us that he's aware that if a developer comes in, he will have to leave because you will, as the city, we will be developing that land. And so am I to understand that we don't have that in writing currently? Because this can't go forward without that understanding legally and in writing. I don't see how that can go forward because everybody has to understand that if we offer this special use permit, it's going to be in condition or in only as good as long as that property is available. But if that property becomes unavailable because a developer comes in, then the agreement is as such, and that should be upfront.
But Ms. Lipka, I mean, that issue is really between him and the landlord. The question ultimately is, what is the impetus for the landlord to do something more than be a landlord? We have this conversation every day about people who own homes in Ferguson, right? People who say, hey, I got a renter. Why am I going to do anything with this property? I have a renter. Does anybody who rents out for $900 a month some very terrible home have any impetus to do anything with it other than city inspectors going through and saying, do this, do this, do this? I mean, is there any impetus for that person who's collecting rent to stop and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I should tear down this home, buy the home next to me, tear it down, and build a home twice the size that matches the rest of the community? No, there's no impetus at all. There is no justification for doing it because they're collecting their rent. I would say that the same exists in the commercial property field. That's the same reason why nothing's ever happened with the Hearst properties. I mean, Hearst sold it, but I mean, they still haven't done anything with it. I mean, others who, as long as they're collecting rent, commercial real estate properties, as long as you're getting rent, I don't know that there is, unless somebody happens to walk in with just a giant blank check, I don't know that there is any kind of impetus for you to say, all right, I'm going to do something different. Until St. John's Liquor went out of business, nobody in Ferguson or anywhere else could say, hey, St. John's Liquor, do something better than be a crappy liquor store. And until they went out of business and were sold on the auction block, which, by the way, Ferguson was there that day to make sure it didn't get bought by someone we didn't want it to be bought by, because we were there with a blank check. Unless that was the case, St. John's Liquor would still be there today selling liquor to minors. No difference than the businesses across the street from there, or up the street. I mean, you know, you go on and on and on. Mike Palmer's property, if we had approved the adult daycare that wanted to go in there, Mike Palmer would have never bought that property because they would have never sold it. We would still, today, in 2020, have an adult daycare in that property instead of Alm Turtle, Papa John's, and also, 8 units above it, or more than that, I don't know, 8 or 10 units of loft above it. But because the council said you're not getting a special use permit to do that, because that is not what we're looking to have in our special business district, even though one existed there prior, the previous owners would have said, well, we'll just keep on operating this facility there, getting rent the way we want it. But we made them do something different. They sold it to Mike Palmer. He redeveloped the property. That is how everything has happened the last 2 decades along South Florissant Road, period. And I'm just suggesting that, you know, continuing to beat each other up over a special use permit instead of having a deeper, longer conversation about this, you know, I think we're selling the city short, and we are not following what many businesses, residents, and council members before us have done to try to lay the groundwork for a successful business district along South Florissant Road.
James, if I could just weigh in here. So initially, when the Plan Commission recommended the initial request, when we voted on it the first time, it seemed to be more of a landlord issue with the tenant, and my decision at that point was that the city didn't need to weigh in on matters such as landlord-tenant. Like we didn't need to be the arbiters of those decisions. But seeing now the Plan Commission has come back and is not in favor of it, and it seems to be more than just a landlord-tenant issue. I don't know that I would vote the same at this point. And
I can tell you, I did speak to the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I do know him, and I asked him why originally they supported it. And what I was told was originally the concern was it would go back to being a car lot, which is they absolutely did not want in Ferguson. You know, since then, the issue of the car lot is gone. The car lot, the grandfathering of having a car lot there is past, and it cannot be a car lot again without the council giving some sort of special permission. And I think that also weighed in on that issue too. I think if you look up and down Florissant Road, probably the most significant thing that has been attempted to deal with over the last 2 decades is get rid of all the car lots. And car lots are dying off because everybody buys cars on, you either go to a real dealership or you go on, you know, Craigslist now, unfortunately. But there's not as many used car lots out there. But I mean, I agree with your point, Heather. I think there was some thoughts before of again, strategically what this was, what this meant in previous conversations, and what it necessarily means now. But that's my understanding just from talking to one member of the board.
But you know, there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot of cars on that lot right now. Like more cars seem to be on there. To the left.
Elliot, can you talk about that? Do you know what other commerce, if any, is going on that lot?
I cannot. I know that inspectors have gone by, and I know that Jeff has gone by, and they've seen vehicles. I don't know, can say that they've actually seen people. I have not been past there. I mean, I say I've been sheltered at home, so I cannot speak to that. The applicant is here. I know this is a council deliberation, but if you wanted to hear from what he had to say. But
I have a bigger question, Elliot. What would stop them from the owner of the car wash from opening up another car wash again? Then be direct competition with them.
the same thing that's stopping them now. You can't have a car wash without the special use permit. So there couldn't be.
I think Byron's point is in the old facility, there's nothing to stop anybody if somebody wanted to reopen one in that old facility, or
Well,
if they wanted to stay in the facility.
They'd still have to go through the same process.
I don't see why. I mean, the special use permit doesn't expire.
Yeah, it expires it's given to the user, not the building. It's not the same as a variance.
Now, my understanding has always been if a new user came in within the year, that is, either legally or otherwise you have a hard time saying essentially no. I mean, so if somebody else came in next door and said, hey, this use had been, just a couple months ago, this had been the use. I mean, maybe this is a question for Apollo, but I mean, how do you tell somebody no? I mean, we just said, yeah, you could go there, but now we're saying a couple months later, you can't. I mean, we've dealt with this up and down the street when it comes to car lots for years. So I guess, is that only in the transference if somebody sells a car lot? I know we dealt with this with Allstate Motors. We dealt with this with Coob. We've dealt with this with Schlick. We've dealt with this not with Northtown.
I mean,
everybody but
actually,
Northtown.
the owner, but couldn't the owner actually start up her own car wash again? She felt like it. It's her property, and there's a car wash.
Well, my understanding, and again, I'll defer to Apollo, is that no, once apart from a transfer, which requires council approval, once the special use goes away, then it's dead.
No problem.
Well,
understandable.
Apollo, go ahead.
Yeah, so special use permits are specific to users. They don't run with the land.
Okay.
So, when the current user under a special use permit transfers that property, you guys have to go through the process all over again. It doesn't, and so I'm looking at the code now and doesn't really mention anything about somebody coming in within a year or anything like that. So I think, at any point in time when there's a transfer of a property subject to a special use permit, if that special use is to continue, the council has to go through the process.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Apollo. I appreciate it. I think in the past, the issue has been whether or not there's been continuous operation of businesses sold, whether it be Coob or Allstate or others that have operated, or Schlick, that operated in Ferguson. I know that those have kind of been issues in the past. So I appreciate Apollo's weighing in on that. I mean, is there any other questions or comments from the council? All right, seeing none, Octavia, call the roll.
Are we voting on something?
Already been made. Yeah, we're voting it up or down.
I mean, for what?
Can I vote, or can I have some say so in this?
I'm sorry, Mr. LaRocca, this is just a council conversation. The public hearing was the last meeting.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
I can hear.
Ms. Pittman, go ahead and call the roll.
Okay, Councilman Fry.
What was the?
This is to approve it or disapprove it.
Hello? Yes, can I say something?
All right.
Hello?
Yes, again, this is for council members. We're polling the council members. Ms. Pittman,
Yeah, but
go ahead.
I was under the impression I can speak. This is Art.
Councilwoman Griffin.
Councilwoman Griffin?
Hello?
Go ahead, Ms. Griffin, yes.
And this is in support or
Yeah, in favor or not of the special use permit?
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow,
Nay.
Councilwoman Robinette,
Nay.
Mayor Knowles,
Nay.
Councilwoman Lipka,
Aye.
Councilwoman Jones.
Aye.
All right, Bill 7185 does not pass. We will move on to Bill 7186. I'll entertain a motion to have it read a second time and placed upon its passage.
So moved.
The motion by Mr. Fry, is there a second? Is there a second?
So moved.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's not to. All right. There's been a motion and a second for Bill 7186. Apollo, will you read the title of the bill for us, please?
Yes, sir. Bill number 7186, an ordinance of the city of Ferguson, Missouri, granting a special use permit to Selective Solutions LLC for the purpose of installation of a 150-foot monopole style telecommunications facility and associated ground equipment in a C2 planned commercial district located at 3066 Purcell Road and subject to the conditions, restrictions, and requirements set forth herein.
All right, is there any questions? This is regarding the communications tower. It's not necessarily a cell tower, it is a communications tower for our E911. I'm sorry, this is not E911. I think they are being co-located.
State.
Yeah, this is for Metro, but it is also is going to have our police and fire radios on there as well. So is there any other questions regarding this? I know we had a lot of conversation and questions last meeting, but I think we're all on the same page now. I see no questions. Octavia, call the roll.
Councilman Fry,
Aye.
Councilwoman Griffin,
No.
Councilwoman Burrow,
Aye.
Councilwoman Robinette,
Aye.
Mayor Knowles,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka,
Aye.
Councilwoman Jones.
Aye.
All right, Bill 7186 passes. All right, next we'll move on to miscellaneous. This is an opportunity for any of the council members to address any matters of particular importance. Because we are having a completely remote or digital meeting, they do ask, state law I think does require that we try to keep this to matters of importance or pressing issues. Is there any pressing issue or matter of importance that needs to be addressed this evening? Mr. Fry?
50 minutes, 49 minutes right now. Let it be known. So I got to say.
Well, it all depends how long we continue with miscellaneous. Is there anybody else?
I do have something
Robinette?
that Friday night we are having the candidates forum for the mayoral race, and the League of Women Voters and the library are putting that on for myself and Ella, and that'll be at 7 o'clock. It'll be, the flyers are out there. It was asked if the city would post it on their calendar. I don't know if, Jeffrey, that's something that we could do, or Octavia, if that's something that we could do. But I really appreciate them being creative and allowing us to have that forum.
It was posted on the city's calendar along with the link to the live stream.
Great, thank you, Octavia.
Excellent, thank you. Is there anything else? I do have a quick comment or something I want to make sure that anybody that might read this in the media, so we see that there's clarification. If you saw some comments by County Executive Sam Page recently, regarding some of the allocation of the CARES Act funding. Some of that money has been recommended by his kind of task force for spending that money to be spent to help reimburse some public safety expenditures from municipalities. There is currently a recommendation from that group to allocate $47 million of the county's $170 million towards that purpose. This morning I was on a conference call with the county executive regarding the allocation of that money, how it would be broken down. Some of those questions are still out there. We're not really sure what the answer is just yet. So we do have a budget meeting on Thursday. There's going to certainly be some conversations about difficult financial decisions that are going to have to be made and are being made on behalf of the city. There is the potential for a one-time influx of monies from the county, one time. I don't know for sure what that's going to be yet, and I have a couple conference calls both tomorrow and Thursday regarding that, so we can get some clarity on what that really will look like. More than likely, what it's going to look like is for the last 3 months or so, some of the revenues that were, or rather some of the expenditures for public safety, so for police and fire, that were incurred during that time, we might be able to be reimbursed for. That'll certainly be helpful, but that does not change one of the issues that we see before us in the upcoming budget years, which is a systemic, or rather a structural deficit in the budget that we still have to deal with. And so that's a conversation we're going to continue during our budget conversations on Thursday. Hopefully we'll have some more clarity as to the process for gaining some of that reimbursement and how much that will exactly be. But right now, we recognize that there is some opportunities there, but we still have some struggles and challenges ahead, and we certainly can't see this as a bailout per se. Again, this is a one-time influx of money, and we need to be thinking both mid and long game on this. So wanted to make sure that issue was raised in case anybody sees it in the paper or on the news. So,
Mayor Knowles, is this the project that you've been working on with the league?
Yeah, this is something that as president of the league, I've myself and a couple of the board members have tried to spearhead. We've worked with our congressional delegation as well as the National League of Cities to get some clarification from the Treasury Department regarding the allocation of those monies, and the county executive has agreed that if we do get that clarification, which we are expecting, I think, any day, that that allocation will be dispersed. Now, the disbursement of that money is still probably going to be based on, what our actual real costs were. And so we are excited. This is a big win. Number one, that the municipal league we've worked on to get the county executive to agree with it. But we're still there's still a few unknowns out there. But I do appreciate that, Ms. Burrow.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think a drum roll is in order for that one, because I know it was back and forth whether even county executive. Oh, there you go. Get that going. So I do appreciate you working so hard on it and so diligently. I thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at between $1 and $1.6 million. We're talking, so this isn't chump change.
All right, ladies, we need that from both of you next forever.
That's right.
Byron brought up a good point. We got to make it before the hour's up, so we got 5 minutes. What was that, Ms. Burrow?
I move that we adjourn.
All right, there's been a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Everybody wants to hang out here? For real?
Byron got his hand up.
Byron's got his hands up. I think that's a second. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you guys, everybody, and have a great evening.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
55, we need 55 minutes.
Good night.
Adios.